Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be showcasing all of the new tanks that'll be making their way into World of Tanks Blitz. If you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more in the future, make sure to smash that subscribe button down below. First vehicle we're going to be starting off with is definitely the most unique, and that is the Jing Xi Jen. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Somebody that's Chinese can let me know in the comments. But either way, this thing looks like the frickin' Terminator. I mean, look at it. It's sick. It's huge, but I think Wargaming did a really good job on the overall design of this vehicle. Now, something I should clarify is right now this is only going to be released in the Chinese servers and not on the normal servers. However, the BZT-70 was the exact same way. People said it wasn't going to be released, and I said it was, and it did get released. So I do have a feeling at some point we'll probably see this make its way into our version of the game. And this thing has crazy good stats. First of all, it's got decent armor. It's a tank destroyer, and like on flat ground, its upper plate is an auto ricochet. The turret, as we can see, is upwards of 270 to 300 millimeters thick. I mean, even loading 340 heat pen, it still has a lot of goofy spots that you can bounce all over, which is actually pretty interesting. Like, this thing has armor. And not only does it have armor, it has 3,650 DPM with 450 damage per shot. It has a whopping 275 base mils a pen, 292 with premium, or 292 with Cali, and 364 with heat. Not only that, but it has almost 80 mils of high explosive pen with 590 damage, giving you 4,500 DPM. Yeah, this thing's kind of crazy. It also has a top speed of 40. It has a reverse speed of 13 with actually a not so bad power to weight ratio, everything considered. The only real downside is that it is basically the largest tank in the game for tank destroyers. It's huge. I mean, look at the length of this thing, dude. It is massive. So there are some downsides, and this one, big downside is the literal size of the tank. But either way, it is very cool, and I'm excited to see if this thing does end up making its way into our version of the game. Now we arrive to the Toxique. This tier 8 collector is going to be released pretty soon here, and for absolutely free. Toxique features pretty good armor, as we can see. Like, at this angle here, 198 mils a pen, you're not going to be cutting through the side. The front upper plate is pretty troll, and so is the turret. So this is how I would recommend to kind of angle the vehicle. You know, an angle like this. It's not bad. And even loading gold, because this thing has spaced armor on the sides, you're not going to be able to pen it even with heat shells, as we can see. So yeah, this thing's pretty impressive. The turret is 254 at weakest, and if you're hitting the angled bits, over 280. So most tier 8s are not going to be cutting through this. The armor is actually pretty strong. However, if you are exposing your mid plate, yeah, it's very easy to pen everywhere. Even the center is only 197, so do keep that in mind. In terms of the gun, it has 2,100 DPM, which is kind of average, especially because with Cali, it's around 2,000. Damage per shot, 390. It's got 198 pen, which isn't great, but the premium pen is very nice at 262. Mobility-wise, it has a top speed of 44, reverse is at 18, and has a pretty average power-to-weight ratio, actually a bit on the lower end. So it's not the fastest, doesn't feature the most accurate gun, in fact, one of the worst accurate guns, but it hits hard, has decent aiming time, and generally seems like it'll be pretty fun. It also does have reticle Cali, which might not be too bad. I don't think this tank looks anything great, but I think it'll be decent, especially if you can angle it and you can use it properly. Plus, it's free. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Toxique. Then we have the Kame. That's what I'm going to call it from now on because I don't think it's Kame. But the Kame is a tier 9 Japanese medium. And I've talked about this tank a little bit on the channel in the past, and I explained how it needed to be buffed before it was released. And Wargaming has buffed it. I don't know if that's because it was in testing or they actually listened to me, but either way, I'm very happy to see it has been buffed. And one of the major criticisms I had was gun depression. It went from the horrible 5 or 6 degrees it originally had to now 8 degrees, which means that you can work ridge lines and you can actually use this thing properly. Its armor is still atrocious, but one other area the vehicle got buffed was mobility. And now reverse is at 17 instead of, I think it was 14, and it has a way better power to weight ratio. So in general, it's much more mobile and it features better gun depression. In terms of the gun, it's still very dangerous, 2,900 DPM. It has premium AP and standard AP, so 233 mils and 279 mils a pen. That's okay. Honestly, it's on the lower end, so definitely something to keep in mind. But generally, the gun does seem pretty dangerous. It's able to deal 640 damage in 1.5 seconds, and you can see that right here. Now, before you go and say, oh, this is so OP, Remember, there are other vehicles that are just as dangerous as this. Like the Skoda T50 has like a 2-second or a 2.5-second intraclip, which is still very fast, and that tank has a 3-shell gun able to deal 930 damage. So there are a lot of other tanks, the ATAC, for example, that are able to deal a lot of damage. So I don't think that this thing's going to be, incredibly dangerous, especially when you realize the Barask at tier 8 has a 2-second intraclip and does the exact same 640 damage. So I think it'll be fine. With that being said, I think it's in a good state right now. Maybe it deserves a little bit better camouflage, but apart from that, I think the gun's decent. I think the mobility and everything about the tank looks pretty well balanced. It seems like an actually balanced autoloader. So not too bad there, Wargaming. Then we have a tier 10, the M47 Chevalier. And yeah, this thing looks sick. I gotta be honest, it looks sick. First of all, just look at it. I mean, the design, I really think Wargaming did a great job in designing this vehicle. I don't even know what it is. It looks like a 30B mixed with a Rom Panzer, but it's sick. In terms of the armor, it actually is quite a bit. It has 240, or this is what 240 mils, and this is what 258 mils of pen looks like aiming at it. And yeah, like you're not going to be able to pen this thing with most standard rounds. It does have a little bit of a weak point being on the left and the right, these little corners, but like if this thing's wiggling its turret, that's going to be a hard shot, honestly. And not to mention, it has a pretty dangerous gun. We can see it has 350 damage per shot with a whopping 3,560 DPM. Even with Kali, it's 3,400, and it gets better. This thing has Hesh. With high explosive, it's able to deal 420 damage per shot, giving it over 4,000 effective DPM, 4,300 with rammer, and that is 225 mils of pen. So this thing has great Hesh penetration and insane levels of damage per minute. That is crazy. If that's not enough, the standard HE does even more damage, giving you 4,400 effective DPM. And as I mentioned, the armor's good. Against heat, you're not going to be able to pen anywhere on the upper plate because it's spaced armor. And on the turret, yeah, you're going to need at minimum 220 mils, which isn't bad, but like that's still pretty good armor. And by the way, it has a top speed of 60. It's not the fastest power to weight at 17.6, making it the slowest medium in tier 10, but the fact that it can still achieve a top speed of 60 is pretty crazy. This thing is fast, it has a really dangerous gun, and it has great gun depression as well, right? I mean, this thing genuinely seems like it could be one of the best tier 10 mediums in the game. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen to this vehicle as it gets released. I don't even know what I would say about balancing, but what I will say is Wargaming, what would be the reason to drive an FE4202 if this thing exists? It has better armor than a 4202. It has substantially more DPM than a 4202, and it's even faster in terms of top speed. And like, sure, the gun's not the most accurate, but it's not bad either. Like, those gun handling values are not bad. So, as I said, this tank needs to be reworked, or they need to buff the 4202, because right now this thing seems like it's going to be pretty busted. But that's all I can say. We already went over the Chinese tanks. We'll move on to the Denala. This is a light tank. It's kind of based off a Caro. It's pretty goofy looking, but it's not ugly. It's just goofy looking, I think we can agree. And the Denala it's really interesting in the fact that it features very, very unique gun capabilities. It has a 6-shell gun, and it's just like the Atlas. So you press the fire button, it shoots 3. Press the fire button, and it shoots 3. It's able to deal 810 damage in that burst, and with an intraclip of how long? The intraclip is 3 seconds. So yeah, it's basically kind of like an Atlas. It does 810 damage and has a 3-second intraclip. It has 2,568 DPM, which is okay, I guess. It's nothing crazy, but it's also not bad. How much pen does it have? 242 on the standard, 294. That's really good pen for a light tank. Although the 48 HE pen is not going to get you very far. In terms of top speed, it can go 63 kilometers per hour. It reverses at 22, and generally, looks pretty good. Power to weight ratio, totally fine. I mean, it's slow for a light tank, but it still has a good power to weight ratio, so I don't think it'll matter too much. It's got crazy good traverse speed. And how about the armor? Well, the armor's not bad. As you can see, using gun depression, the upper part of the turret and the mantlet are actually not really going to be penned. Like, even if you're loading 300 mils of pen, this thing's got a very tricky mantlet, so I don't think the armor's actually bad on this tank, but it's also not great. I mean, the lower plate's only 70, so high explosive shells from 150 millimeter guns are going to cut right through you. Side armor's 50, but definitely not bad for a light tank. This thing seems like it's going to be pretty fun, and maybe even needs to be nerfed a little. If I were to nerf it, I think the only thing I'd do is I'd lower the DPM. I would probably bring it from like 25 to 2300, but generally, looks pretty fun. I'm very excited to try this thing out. We have the Husars, which This thing looks crazy. I'm not going to lie. This thing looks absolutely crazy. It's Polish, and it features the mechanic that we have on the Polish tank destroyers. So the closer you are to the enemy, the more damage you deal. The further you are away, the less damage you deal. So at closest distance, you have 2,850 DPM, which makes it the highest DPM heavy in Tier 9. You're dealing 560 damage per shot with crazy fast reload of only 11.77 seconds. And as you get further away, so past 50 meters, you're now looking at 480 damage per shot. Your DPM now goes down to 2,400, ranking you still within the 13th best, but obviously that's a lot less. At 120 meters of distance, you're now looking at pretty bad DPM at 2,038. And if you try to camp in this vehicle or you're shooting at tanks across the map, your DPM becomes the lowest in Tier 9, and yeah, you're 320 damage per shot. So generally you want to stay within 50 to 0 meters of distance. Anything though within 120 is going to be fine. You're still going to be sitting at solid damage per shot and solid DPM. But 560 is really nice, especially because this thing is a heavy. It's got a lot of health, 2,200, and it also has a lot of armor. I mean, look at the armor this thing has. With calibrated shells, this is what it looks like when you're aiming it on the vehicle. 260 mils of AP and 325 of APCR, so turret at weakest is 350 to 360. If you're firing heat shells, you're going to need 365 mils a pen, and with gun depression, you're going to need 390. Remember, this is a Tier 9. This thing has more armor than even some Tier 10s. The upper plate's over 380, so you're not penning that. Lower plate is weak, but genuinely, this thing has really good armor. However, that cutout will be a big weak point, so definitely something to keep in mind. This is mainly going to be in a hull-down fighter. The hatch is also a big weak point. It's only about 190, so it's not going to be too hard to cut through that at all. Generally, I think that this tank looks pretty dangerous. It's got really good armor. It's got a gun with crazy DPM and damage per shot, but, well, it's very slow. It only goes 35, reverses at 13, and its power to weight ratio of 11.9. It's not anything too special. So generally, you're not going to be winning any speed records with this tank. It's very large as well. So even though it is very dangerous, I think for the average player, it's still going to be a tricky one to drive. Finally, that brings us to the AMX 5100 Titan. And I honestly was expecting more out of this vehicle, if I'm going to be totally real. Like, it's not bad. It has decent turret armor, as we can see. About maybe 220-ish mils of turret armor there. And if you're running enhanced armor, like, it's not bad. 230-ish, 40 mils of turret armor. The upper plate is about 220. Lower plate's 130. But, like, the armor's not great, and I was expecting it as a Titan tank, sacrificing a bit of mobility for armor, that it would be better in that regard. Even if we activate the armor ability, and we take a look, like, it's not bad. The upper plate's about 270, 80 millimeters thick, but, like, the turret still has a massive hatch, so you'll have to stick it up, but if you do that, then this becomes a weak point, and the lower half of the upper plate is still pretty weak. So, while the armor is decent, it's definitely not anything crazy. In terms of the gun, it's not an autoloader. It features 2,400 DPM, which is nice, 330 damage per shot, but it's not an autoloader. In terms of the gun, it's got 270 mils of premium pen. It's got 226 standard. If we're loading Cali, 240 and 289. So it's got good pen. Damage per shot is okay, although honestly, it's got really bad high explosive, only going up 30 damage per shot. Why would you even bother firing HE in this thing? Mobility-wise, 36 with a power-to-weight ratio of 13. So it's not the fastest. It doesn't feature the best armor. Its DPM is okay. I think it'll be fine, but, like, why would you drive this tank when a Tiger 2 exists? I think that's really the best way to describe it, right? Let's pull out a Tiger 2. Let's first of all start by talking about the Tiger 2 armor. Running enhanced, this is what it looks like against 240 mils of pen. The upper plate's 250, lower plate's 240. So you're not penning this thing. With 300 mils of pen, which is crazy, it still has pretty good armor. Like, against heat shells, you're going to need at the minimum 260 and 280 to cut through this tank. And if you're angling properly like this, you're going to need 320, 300, and 300. So basically, you cannot cut through a Tiger 2 unless you have over 300 mils of pen, and the turret's about 250. Not only that, but this tank also features 2,400 DPM, which is more. It features better standard pen, or no, the same standard pen, better premium pen. It has the same top speed with a similar power to weight. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Why would you drive the Titan if you could drive this? My personal opinion, Wargaming, I would buff the Titan AMX by a little bit on its top speed. Don't have it as fast as the, base AMX 5100, but maybe have it 40, 43, 44 kilometers per hour and give it a better power to weight. That would be good because then the armor would be good, but not great. And the mobility would be nice and the DPM would be nice. And I think you'd be fine. But right now, I think it's just why drive it when a Tiger 2 exists, right? Either way, that's my opinions on all of these new tanks coming into the game. I'm most excited and interested to see what's going to happen with the Terminator tank destroyer. But either way, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.